Okay, everyone, I'd like to call the meeting to order. This is a Township Council special meeting for August 1st, 2023. This is a special meeting of the Township Council of Township of Montclair and is being broadcast live on Channel 34 and is streaming live on the Montclair TV 34 YouTube channel. It's available on demand and can be and will be rebroadcast. This special meeting is called pursuant to the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Act. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided, transmitted to the official newspapers on July 28, 2023, posted in the bulletin boards outside the municipal building and has remained continuously posted. In addition, a copy of the special meeting notice is and has been available to the public and is on file in the office of the Township Clerk. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Councillor Cummings?
Present.
Deputy Mayor Hurlock absent. Councillor Price Abrams?
Present.
Councillor Russo?
Present.
Councillor Schlager?
Here.
Councillor Yacobelis?
Present.
Mayor Spiller?
Present. We'll move the agenda with flexibility. And first, certainly before we begin tonight, I want to take just a moment. Certainly, we've all heard the unfortunate news of the passing of our Lieutenant Governor here in the state of New Jersey, someone who was a strong advocate for us here in Essex County for so many years, just a great leader, broke so many barriers and ceilings. Certainly had the opportunity to work with her a number of years when she was Speaker and certainly built a strong relationship there. And as Lieutenant Governor, some lighter moments when she would attend events and I'd see her and, a couple of my events we've hopped in and just had a lot of fun at. And she will be missed because of her, I think, for her advocacy for her constituents. She'll be missed for her ability just to bring levity in situations and to be just a good person and to make sure that she did everything with class. I think everyone would always note that with her, just somebody with an unbelievable amount of class and dignity. So as the governor always notes, she was the best, and certainly she will be missed. And with that, if we could have a moment, if we could rise and have a moment of silence for our Lieutenant Governor. Thank you.
Mayor, I just want to add that Sheila had a message. It was really her email address, which I used to email to. It was impossible to miss it or forget it because it said each teach. So her emphasis was on everybody teaching each other, helping teach each other to be good and positive. So really going to miss her. She's friends with me for 30 years. She was actually a council person in East Orange originally. Thank you.
With that, we'll open the meeting to public comment. All speakers must complete the sign-in sheet next to the podium before addressing the council. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes, and we have noted the public comment limit on this special meeting of 1 hour. So with that, I'll open up public comment.
Hey, Mayor,
wishes to speak to the public.
Before the public speaks, because I don't know how long this is going to last, whatever, but I just want to announce that on Tuesday at 8 p.m., I'm going to be having a public meeting regarding Lackawanna Plaza. This will include all the individuals who participated in the webinar last night, but the public will be invited to attend. We're going to have it at Glenfield School from 7 to 9 p.m. So I think that's important. And the other part regarding this meeting tonight is that I shared my concerns about how we got to this point. And looking back, I truly believe there are several procedural flaws that must be discussed publicly before a vote is taken. When the mayor called for an executive session, we did not follow the proper procedure and announce the reason. We did not identify the exemptions, and we did not say when the information would be made available to the public. Some may think I'm being nitpicky, but when you consider why we were going into executive session, when we went to an executive session, we discussed matters that were important, and we came out with a resolution to put forth and engage Joe Hartnett as interim town manager. This was after we voted on a resolution to give Mr. Hartnett's firm to do a search for an interim manager and consult for the township for a not-to-exceed contract of $50,000. It doesn't matter if the resolution named Mr. Hartnett as interim attorney. What does matter is that we hired him as an interim manager and also gave his company a contract, or in the process of getting his company a contract. That to me is a conflict of interest and reeks of unethical self-dealing, in which the person acting as interim manager will be supervising the paid service of his company. even though now we are going to be asking him to resign in a few days. It's really no different when I was elected. If I made a motion and got 3 other people to give counselors to remove Ms. Walk as our communications manager and hire the company that I had at the time to run Township communications. So I have a real big problem with what's going on the last 13 days, especially while I was gone. So as acting manager or interim manager, I have real problems with the authority that Mr. Hartnett has had. I requested that we have an investigation in the matter and determine if a conflict of interest does exist. Because I don't see how you can have someone paid for themselves as well as operating and working for the township. I also have an issue with that current township employee also works for Mr. Hartnett's firm. So I really don't understand how Mr. Gary Observing can be a managing director for GSG and also serves the township in running 2 or 3 of our utilities. That reeks of self-dealing. So I think the public needs to be aware of these things. The other part that I think is really important that we all know about this, statutorily, we as a council are responsible for hiring a manager, not an interim manager. We do not have the authority to appoint a staff member as an acting manager, which we did with Mr. Scantlebury. But that's besides the point right now. What is important is that we are acting outside of our authority. We cannot have an interim manager hire an interim manager. As for the interim manager we're looking to approve today, how can you create a resolution that was not provided to all the council members beforehand? When we received that resolution that at 11:30, 12 o'clock at night, no one on the council other than 4 members must have saw it. I know Councilor Russo did not see it. I know Councilor Hurlock did not see it. To me, that's not fair. And when we move forward, during the council meeting, Councilor Price Abrams stated that we would all get a chance to meet with anyone being recommended. That did not happen. 2 days later, Mr. Hartman sent an email to the council that but it came from his government strategies group email address, not him, the interim manager, was recommending Mr. Lapola to the position of interim manager. If you haven't interviewed someone, how can you vote for him? So the question is, has anyone on the council interviewed Mr. Lapola? Because if you did, I didn't get a chance to interview him. If you didn't, I don't understand how you can vote for someone for a position that will be running this township without talking to him. To me, that just reeks of irresponsibility. I also have concerns that we may have violated the Open Publics Meeting Act. Because when the GSG contract was initially brought forth, it did not pass. We were deadlocked 3-3. However, since that time, Councilor Slager joined the 3 who originally voted to hire GSG. I don't see how that changed without conversations. Some people think that you can get around the Open Public Meetings Act by having conversations with just 1 or 2. You can't do that because essentially what you're doing is you're trying to get around it by doing that. So the question is, were there any separate conversations? Because once we received, again, the documentation or resolution appointing Mr. Hartnett, no one was consulted other than the 4 who then did make the presentation. So I can't conclude, but there must have been some communication on the resolution that was presented to hire Mr. Hartnett so quickly. At the same time, publicly, Mr. Jacobellis and Mr. Slager discussed Mr. Scantlebury's performance, stating they had some concerns based on senior staff assessment of Mr. Scantlebury. We never gave Mr. Scantlebury a rights notice, and although he was here and did not say anything, he knew, or they knew, we would be talking about his position and ultimately his work. Mr. Burr told me that night that Peter actually sent them a resolution prior to the meeting appointing Mr. Hartnett, and when Mr. Burr asked him if he told Brian. Mr. Jacobellis, according to Mr. Burr, did not. Mr. Burr warned him, you need to tell him, you cannot do this. No one spoke to Mr. Scantlebury, no one riced him. So in legalese language, here are my questions for Mr. Burr and Mrs. DeVito to answer. 1, the Faulkner Act does not provide for an interim manager. Such a position is inimical, adverse otherwise, and incompatible with the structure and intended operation of the council manager plan. The manager is the CEO appointed by the council but not supervised or managed by the council or any consultant that the council hires, e.g. GSG or Joe Hartnett. The intent, among other things, is to insulate the management of the township from politics, etc. The council can only appoint a manager based on the method set forth in NJSA 4069A-92. And upon making the required findings, The council can only remove a manager pursuant to NJSA 40:69A-93. If the manager is absent or cannot serve, the manager, or in her absence, the council can appoint another municipal official to the same managerial duties until a new manager is hired. NJSA 40:69-94, as was done with Mr. Scantlebury. The only way the council can fill the slot other than appointing a full-fledged manager. Now, one might say that the law doesn't anywhere say that you can't appoint an interim manager from the outside, but given what the Faulkner Act does say, and immense powers that the manager has, both in NJSA 40:69A-95 and NJSA 40:69A-98, a hired person to come in is not on the menu. This whole process reeks of deceit, conflict of interest, and unethical behavior. It is not lost on me that when it was discovered that Mr. Scantlebury was looking into bringing an outside firm to investigate the fire department and had questions about the validity of the promotion cam, we all moved quickly to remove him and replace him with a town manager, interim manager, who not only failed to supervise Mr. Herman and department when he was the manager, but now comes forth to do an investigation and manage this township. When I asked for this council to give Mr. Morgan the opportunity to present and defend his report, no one said yes, other than me. So therefore, the characterization is not being thorough by some of Mr. Morgan's report. I wonder why. There's no reason for me to believe that this was not done other than the fact that they wanted to get rid of Mr. Scantlebury. I said it before. What you do in the dark comes out in the night. I have one question for Mr. Hartnett. Does anyone from the township employees currently or ever work for his company? The answer is yes, because I have a resolution with Hopewell Township right now. And I will not sit here and be a part of this moral bankruptcy, lack of integrity, and unethical behavior.
Mayor, I'd like to say something.
Please, Councilman Russo?
First of all, I was handed this resolution as we came in. The clerk handed me a resolution at 7 o'clock. All day long, I've been asking if there is a resolution, and no one answered me to tell me there was a resolution until 10 minutes before the meeting, when Councilman Iacobellis had the courtesy to tell me the resolution's being prepared now. So now I see what's in the resolution. Now, my first question is, when is this resolution going to be read? Because it was explained to me by several people today, a lot of time wasted, that this would not be done until a council met in executive session to discuss what we want to do, and then we would propose, or we would develop a resolution that the clerk or the town attorney would write up and print up and then hand it to us. The clerk handed this to me, and I'm reading it, and I want to know, when are we going to vote on it, or what is the procedure tonight, number one, to vote on this? Is it after there's a conference meeting, or is this a fait accompli, done deal, handed to us now to vote on first?
Under Robert's rules, if that's a question, I will say this: anyone can make a motion at any time, as has been done, with or without any written documentation. If there is a second, it is debated and discussed, and then there's a vote.
I know that theoretically, but the question is, was this proposed now to be read before we have a discussion as a council? Now you've got two council people gone. I'm ready to go. You have a quorum, I guess. But if 4 people were privy to what was going to be in this prior to me receiving it, then that's the point I've been making all day. Because remember this, folks, I didn't come with a prepared statement, but I've got my points to make. A few weeks ago, when we had a meeting in July on the 18th, a resolution like this appointing Mr. Hartnett was prepared at 6:30 p.m. and not given to us until midnight. Now, I don't know who had that resolution all that while, but it was not given to me. I can only speak for myself, but I know I saw it was passed out at midnight to everyone. Now, if it was here at that time, which is good that it's here now, see, I asked all day, where is the resolution? Where's the resolution? And now I get it, see? So, thank God I'm here to push for these things, right? Here's the resolution which says, we're going to appoint an interim manager. The man who's doing the job now is going to leave, and the new person comes in the 14th. And it's got the salary, everything I asked for. I said, I want the details. I want the substance of whatever we're going to do tonight to be in my hands before I come from a vacation, and I'm not feeling that well. I'm going to have an operation the end of July to get all the problems I have out of my stomach. It's agita, you know, I get from being on the council. That's what Italians say it is, but it's really more than that. All of you, I warn you all to get checked. Get colonoscopies. Check out your, intestinal tract. Get these things done because you're going to discover that you've got problems that could come from heredity. My mother died of a colon problem. My father died of stomach cancer. My brother has a constricted throat issue. And my sister had the same operation I'm going to have, which is to remove a piece of the tract. Now, it's going to make me great. I'll be great in September. See? But right now I'm going through a little period and that's tough. But I'm trying to be real nice tonight because here's what it is. It was an inconvenience for me to come up here with my wife making plans to get away for a long time. We finally got away. But I came up tonight and I got finally what I was looking for. It's not what I want to see done. It's what I was looking for. Remember, I was never given a heads up that a meeting like this was even going to be held this coming week. Councilor Cummings was in Paris and just arrived. Councilor Schlager was also away. I've been away, should be still away, but I'm going to go in for some tests the rest of the week. I don't want to travel back and forth for something that's predetermined. I have to say this. Let me just say this. Councilor Yacobelis and Councilor Price Abrams, who I helped mentor with numerous issues during the first 3 years in office, seem to have pre-knowledge of all of these consulting firm and law firm appointments. I've never had input or discussions with these new hires as promised. I've known Michael Lapola, who's the person we're appointing. I've known Michael Lapola since the days working for Senator Bill Bradley when I helped Bill Bradley become a senator and he became a candidate for president. And I knew the young man then, that long ago. I haven't seen or talked to him since, but I knew him then, 30 years ago. Bill Bradley lived in my building in Montclair. So I have contact with this individual and I know him. And I don't have a problem with the individual. But I have a problem with the process, okay? I don't even need to interview him, but that should be done before we do this, as Councilor Cummings said. We should be interviewing. So if this is all decided and it's all fixed and he takes over from Brian Scantlebury in a couple of weeks, what I don't like is that there's a musical chairs of having first Stafford, then Brian took over for 8 months now, and he did a fine job as far as I'm concerned. We have our differences, but I have great respect for him. Now we have Mr. Hartnett, who knows the town because he was manager when I was mayor, okay? But now we're going to go to Mr. Lapola as interim. And then we're going to have a search for a new, it's like musical chairs of interim managers. Montclair cannot operate this way, musical chairs. We should have left a fine deputy manager in charge while we commence the search, and that could even be through Mr. Hartnett's firm. So I'm really not against, even though I did vote against doing it because I don't want to see us do this, but I was not against having his firm do a search. I'm against putting him in and then putting somebody else in when Brian Scantlebury's sitting there doing a good job for 8 months and having been working for us for years. He was a councilman in 1992 when I was first elected. So why didn't we leave him in and not spend the money that we could use for our schools and senior citizens? It's just another layer of administration and bureaucracy and management. Now, I'm going to continue to dissent from these decisions where we're wasting resources on outside consultants, outside law firms, and unnecessary hiring. I'm doing this on behalf of the taxpayers of Montclair, many citizens who come to me and ask me for help and ask me for more transparency. They want answers to these continuing questions about the management of our town. I served for 24 years, in this 24th year right now, 6 terms, mayor, deputy mayor, councilor at large, first ward councilor, the highest margins in history. Highest margins. What I'm talking about is re-election margins, because nobody's ever been re-elected a councilman at large with 5,000 votes before. Yes, Peter, you got 5,500 votes, but I got 5,000 votes after 20 years. So after 20 years, people appreciated the work I've done. I'm going to have to keep making these decisions on behalf of the wonderful and intelligent residents of Montclair, and I'm telling you all right here, I like you all, you're nice people, but I cannot sit here and participate in this. There's an old saying that says you can fool some of the people all of the time. You can fool all of the people some of the time, but you can't fool all of the people all the time. So I'm going to join my friend, Mr. Cummings, and leave tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, we will open.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Can I just address one issue that was...
Sure, is your microphone on, just so I can hear you? I can't.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Just want to address the issue that was raised about
Please.
myself. I won't get into all the other issues. Surprisingly enough, I actually agree with Councilor Cummings that I have a conflict of interest. And I had already informed the township attorney that I felt I had a conflict of interest while I'm serving as interim manager, dealing with anything of the business of the firm that I'm associated with. The only instance which the counselor cited, which he thought might be an actual conflict, is my forwarding of the resume of the gentleman for consideration to take over as interim manager. And, I resolved that it was not a conflict because it could have come from me from either position, so it really didn't matter. The firm could have forwarded it to me, and I could have just passed it along to the council. So with the exception of that one thing, which did not consider to be a conflict of interest, I have refrained and recused myself from being involved in anything that has to do with the business of the firm and the Township of Montclair while I am serving as the interim manager. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Jacobells.
I just want to, I think it's important to talk about, excuse me? Thank you. I don't like the spectacle that went on tonight. Some of us have never missed a vote. If you don't agree with or don't support what we're doing, what a majority decides to do on any given council meeting, you still stay here and do the job. So I think it's shameful, the acts that certain council members took tonight, and in particular, the way they stopped and made sure to talk to a reporter on the way out of the room. Because the goal is not to do the right thing. The goal is to continue to sow doubt in the institution and in processes when they don't agree with those processes. And that is what one of the biggest dangers to democracy is. Everything that we have been doing is completely legitimate and completely legal. You can disagree with it, you can not like the outcome, but you cannot say that it's not legitimate. And you should not abdicate your responsibility and leave the council chamber and leave your responsibility in terms of representing your constituents. So I think it's very shameful that they decided to walk out of the room. And I'm disappointed in several of my colleagues tonight because I have always sat here, no matter what the issue was, no matter how tough it was. I have never missed a meeting. I've never missed a vote. No matter how I felt, whether I was losing or winning in terms of my point of view, that's governing. Thank you.
Okay. With that, we will go to public comment. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak? Nope, just make sure it's on with the button.
Good evening. Mr. Cummings would say that my biggest weakness is that I like everyone. And I do like everyone. I like all of you. I've known all of you for a long time, some of you for decades. Jessica DeKoning, 530 Valley Road, Montclair. I served on this council from 1992 to 2000. And I had the honor and privilege of serving with Brian Scantlebury. it just breaks my heart. I wouldn't be here otherwise. Brian's a class act. Well regarded in the community. Highest professional ethic. It was a pleasure to serve with him. And I know as a resident, he got the garage open, he cleaned up Nishwain Park, which looked terrible. He fixed the bridge at Edgemont. I don't know what's going on internally. And neither did the 40,000 other people, and we don't want to. So when council members start saying things from the podium, it's disturbing. He doesn't have an opportunity to respond. He did not get a Rice notice. Some of you work in the public sector, you know he should have gotten a Rice notice, and it looks bad. It just looks bad. For somebody who served this town so diligently, this is my first time coming up here in 20 years. And I'm not happy about that. When I was on the council, Betty Evans, I don't know if you know her, she was one of the first women who served here in the 1970s. She would come in occasionally and school us, and it was valuable. And I miss her terribly, because she'd remind us about what the Faulkner Act is all about. And what it's about is making sure that the manager runs the town, not the council members. The council members vote on policy. And sometimes just reading the paper, and that's the paper, I don't know, I get the feeling that there's too much personal engagement. And I understand when you're elected, you want the limelight and all of that other stuff, but it's not fair to the person who's the manager. And Brian was doing a fine job. And I'm left feeling that his predecessor was here for an awfully long time after a lot of stuff happened, and there were litigation and all of this other stuff, and he was on the payroll. Brian, in a very short period of time, comparatively, is out with some procedural problems at the council end, and it looks terrible. It looks like if you are a black man, you're not given the same, you're not treated the same way. And it's a matter, there's a kind of tone deafness that's bothering me, and somebody has to say something about that. It can't go unstated. So, I don't know what the solution is now. I do know that hiring a manager is the most important thing that the council does.
And then that's your time.
I'm finishing. And that a 4-3 council can't do that effectively, and a 4-3 council can't govern well. So please, figure it out. I don't want to come again ever. So thank you.
Thank you.
Good night. I'm Mariana Horta. I live on Gordonhurst Avenue. So, Mr. Hartnett, welcome back to Montclair. I wasn't here when you were here before. It cannot have escaped your notice that you came in under a cloud of suspicion. Unfortunately, you were brought in by a midnight resolution that no one expected, by people who were just so comically incompetent that they appointed you interim township attorney. And while they're explaining things, saying nothing with their arms up like this, Bob Russo tried to read the resolution. He tried to fix the mistake, but they're so arrogant that they wouldn't let him speak. And that's why you were appointed interim township attorney. How do you like being an attorney? So, under these circumstances, we fully expect you to fill us. We expect you to recommend not a technocrat, not a competent manager, but a politician. Recommend someone who play nice with the council, who do what they want, who not say no, who might let them keep health insurance they weren't supposed to. You know, someone a lot like Mr. Stafford. The kind of guy who was bad at school, graduated to being not very good at his jobs, and yet kept failing upwards because he knows how to talk to people. He's maybe on a first name basis with some political bosses in New Jersey, you know, like a legitimate son of dirty Jersey. That's the kind of person I fully expect you to recommend. So I came here tonight to ask you to prove me wrong, prove all my friends wrong, and not do that. Instead, I ask you to to recommend a true technocrat, someone with a master's in public policy or a master's in public administration, maybe an MBA, someone who's quantitatively sophisticated, someone who will never make decisions that are not based on data, someone who would laugh at this council if they proposed that Glen Ridge fire contract and would refuse to take it to Glen Ridge. Someone who would not have allowed them to keep their health insurance when they were not supposed to. Someone who clean up house in Montclair. Someone who does not bear and will not agree to nepotism. You know, someone who never, ever gave his brother a job in public service, please. Someone we can be proud of. Someone intelligent like you. Someone we'd be really happy to see around here. Please prove us wrong. Do that tonight. Thank you.
Good evening. I didn't know anything about Brian Scantlebury when he first became interim manager. I saw so many difficult and challenging issues come up during his term, and he handled them very well. I was so impressed. I don't understand why he's being asked to leave, especially when Stafford stayed around for so long and he did things either incompetently or corruptly. This just makes no sense to me. I don't understand it.
Good evening. Some of you have been around here for a long time and have been very comfortable with behaving in an undemocratic manner. I'm looking at you, Mr. Spiller. Some of you are newer and have really tried to convince people that you are committed to transparency, openness, and democracy. I am not fighting with what you did, because I've heard all the stories. I'm fighting with how you did it. Midnight resolutions are a bad way to do business. It was a terrible idea. It was a shameful idea. You need to never do that again. It's wrong. Mr. Hartnett, I commend you for being open about your conflicts of interest. That was very professional, it was very unemotional, it was very transparent and understandable. I hope that this government can continue in a way that is straightforward, that makes us capable of feeling confident in what you guys do and trusting what you guys do, all right? You need to do better. You need to be better. The citizens of Montclair deserve to have people they can trust in the town manager position and representing us. You really need to do better. And I have to say, when someone who boycotted votes herself when she sat on the Board of Ed comes up here to give you a lecture, it's pretty pathetic. You need to do better.
Hi, I'm Joanne Katzban. I live on Gordonhurst Avenue. I've lived in town for 37 years. I've had two careers, one in public sector with a large mass transit organization in New York City, and also as an employment attorney. I'm very concerned with the appointment of a new town manager. And I agree with many of the comments made here tonight. First, I'm concerned that we're going to have an endless chain of interim managers, like we had an endless chain of school superintendents. And I'm also concerned at what criteria are going to be used to hire a town manager. I consider it critical for Montclair's next town manager to have a true ability to lead the town in an incredibly crucial period. We're so divided and so adversarial, and I just hate to see what has happened in this town. As I said, I've been here for 37 years, and I've never seen anything as I did in the past 5 years. I mean, I think it's part of the fact that we live in a country that is divided in this way and behaves in this way. But I don't think ad hominem comments and uncivil discourse is the way to proceed, and it's just not helping the town. My criteria for the next town manager, the town manager must be fully committed to adhering to both the letter and spirit of all New Jersey's protective employment statutes and regulations. To this end, there must be a fulsome vetting of a candidate's history, not only their employment history, but a background search regarding any prior administrative or legal complaints concerning bias or discrimination. As an employment attorney, I can tell you many employers never look fully into a background, and then to their dismay, they find that there were red flags in a background that they just never bothered to look at. So I want to see a very fulsome investigation. And I'm not talking about people with irrelevant criminal histories, with minor drug use. I'm talking about bias and discrimination in their background. And I'm also concerned that we get a manager who has public outreach and interface skills. Montclair has been plagued in the last few years with these bitter divides. And too often, the council turns to the public turns to the council for the things that the manager should be addressing and handling. We don't have to run to our council manager every time there's a council member, every time there's a pothole in the street, or we're not plowed soon enough. That is the job of the town manager. But too often in the past, we have unresponsive public employees. The township manager has to be able to manage the employees and the staff so that they can deal with the concerns of the citizens and do it honestly and directly. And please, I beg of you to conduct yourselves as professional public officers.
Thank you.
Good evening, council people and Mr. Mayor. My name is Bill Barron. I live on Gordonhurst Avenue. Been a resident of Montclair for 37 years. When we moved to Montclair in '86, we had lived in Hoboken for 10 years before then. At that time, Hoboken's mayor was Stephen Cappiello, a former policeman rumored to have mafia ties. It was not the best town government. The school district was in disrepair, and there was corruption all over the place. When we moved to Montclair, it was a breath of fresh air. Didn't have to get involved with politics. Everything ran smoothly. I loved being able to drive into my driveway with groceries and unpack and not look for a parking space for 20 hours. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because I feel like in the last couple of years, Montclair is now Hoboken, as it was 30 years ago. The inability to hire a school superintendent for however long that took. The goings-on here with the town manager. The scandals with the fire department, with the finance officer, and everything else. This is totally inappropriate for what's going on in Montclair. And I have to tell you, I respect and I've spoken, I have relationships with many of the people on the council. I'm very, very disappointed in the behavior and the failure to follow openness, to follow the law. I mean, it sounds like, in contrast to what Pete, you said, that the process for hiring Mr. Hartnett is not appropriate, is not following the law. I don't know, but I take the comments by Mr. Russo and Mr. Cummings seriously, that the law was not followed, and it doesn't sound like it was. So, originally I was going to come here and, give some comments about how the next town manager needs to be innovative, needs to be progressive, the importance of developing a climate action plan for the town, and for doing all the things that I've spoken to the council about environmentally over the past couple of years. But I think the issues run much deeper. I would urge you not to take any actions tonight, and I would urge you to go back and try to get a consensus among everybody in the council. Thank you.
Anyone else from the public wishing to speak?
Just real quick.
Councilman Akbels?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm sorry, Mr. Scott, were you going to give a public comment? Okay, yes. I'll go after you.
Yeah, we're not done yet. So.
Okay. Good evening. William Scott, 23 Cedar Avenue. I've been a resident of Montclair for 73 years. I've been actively involved in many committees and commissions in this township. Mr. Hartnett, we go back quite some time. I've worked with a lot of different town managers, a lot of different council members. I think what's important, and this can be very straightforward and simple: principle and respect. Principle and respect. Mr. Cummings put out a lot of information. He was given the opportunity to be heard, and I respect that. I don't think it says anything less of him after he makes a statement that you criticize him because he feels he wants to stand on principle and respect, Mr. Yacobelis. So we have to make sure that when someone is stating their position and they feel that they're standing on principle and respect, you don't degrade that person. You don't do that. You don't do that in Montclair. 73 years I've been here. God willing, I'll be here a few more years, okay? I've worked with all of you on many different boards and committees. We've always been respectful. We don't agree on everything. But when an individual is not given an opportunity to defend himself, he is blindsided by 11 o'clock or whatever the time of night was, resolution to remove him from his current position. That was wrong. Anyone with respect and principle can always tell someone what's going to happen. There's no problem with that. Mr. Scantlebury's a grown man. He can accept anything that's put before him in a transparent manner. But if there's a lack of transparency around there, that's a problem. That's a real problem. Now, I don't know all the Faulkner Act's pieces and things like that, but I think one thing is important. And matter of fact, Mayor Spiller, on your newsletters, you say if you have a problem with any of the, or a question, not a problem, if you have a question of any of the resolutions or ordinances that have been passed around, give me a call, send me an email. Well, I've done that on 2 or 3 occasions. I haven't heard back from you yet, because I want to give you an opportunity to stand on your principle, and I give you respect. But if you give me an opportunity to question something and then you refuse to reply, I've got a problem with that. So principle and respect is very important around here. I respect each and every last one of you. But I think what happened to Mr. Scantlebury is unacceptable, and we cannot, this resolution should be pulled until we can come up with the proper solution to fix the problems with the township manager. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I am Ilmar Vanderer, lifelong resident of Montclair. I was not planning to speak this evening, and this is certainly a tough act to follow, but after hearing the remarkable remarks of my dear and wonderful friend and Montclair High School classmate, Councillor David Cummings, I feel compelled to say something. And in all the years that I've known Mr. Cummings, I can say honestly, I've never seen him, or rarely seen him, as upset as he was clearly this evening. So I followed him as a friend into the parking lot and told him the following, and I'd like everyone to hear it and think about it. You know that I've always admired you, but never more so than right at this moment. These days, there are all too few people who are willing to take a stand over ethics and integrity. Thank you for having the courage and moral fortitude, for standing up for what's right and telling it like it is. So I'm going to leave it at that and hope that you all do the right thing, and hope that there is better news to follow. Oh, and by the way, I will disclose that I am that mysterious person who first discovered and alerted everyone to the typo in your resolution. So I am a professional editor and writer, and I'm happy to offer you my proofreading services for future reference, if that could be useful. Thank you. Good night.
All right, seeing no one else for public comment, I will close public comment. Councilman Jacobellis, I know you wanted to extend it.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to make a couple more comments just based on what the public has said and what some of our colleagues have said as well. I think the first thing I would say is you can only, one of the hardest parts about this job is you can, and those of you who have served publicly as well know, you can only be as transparent as you're allowed to be in terms of when you're dealing with confidential information, when you're dealing with litigation, when you're dealing with personnel matters, performance issues. So it's really difficult to sit here and to know things that the public doesn't know and watch the public have to struggle with that and fill in the blanks. It doesn't surprise me that certain conclusions are drawn as a result of that. It's a puzzle. You do not have all the pieces of the puzzle to put together what the narrative is, what the story is, what the facts and the truth are. Some of us do, not all of us, unfortunately. And part of the reason is not everybody stood around to participate. And that's my criticism, is we are supposed to, we were going to consider going into an executive session tonight to discuss this as a group. There is no foregone conclusion that Mr. Russo said on his way out. We could have had a session, we could have had a meeting with the 7 of us. Deputy Mayor Herlock is out in downtown Montclair right now at night out. Councilor Cummings walked out of the room in protest. We could have had all 7 of us here, looked each other in the eye, and had a conversation about what we're considering doing tonight and understood where each other were coming from. Resolutions are things, as the mayor mentioned earlier, I can say out loud right now, and I'm only meaning this in a humorous matter, I would like to make a resolution that Montclair recognizes that blue skies are beautiful. And there would be a second, and 4 people would vote on it, and the clerk would type up a resolution later to say Montclair Council passes a resolution saying blue skies are beautiful. Point being that resolutions can be done and initiated verbally. It doesn't have to be text or a piece of paper that's created and shared in advance. Resolutions are intentions and resolutions of the council. They're not the same as an ordinance. So I just want to, I understand the frustration, but I want to just offer this critique of some of my colleagues' behavior. I don't think it's on principle. I do think it's based on not agreeing with the outcome and being frustrated with that. And I think that's what's unfortunate, is because you're supposed to sit in this seat and do your job no matter what. Thank you.
Councilwoman Price Abrams.
Thanks, Mayor. I also just wanted to offer one detail that perhaps isn't known, but it seems like I don't think it was properly represented in someone's comments earlier, but on July 20th, which was after our last meeting, Joe Hartnett did send to every one of us that they were pleased to recommend, this candidate, and gave a little bit of explanation about him and said this would be an interim appointment per a previous proposal they had made, and the resume is attached, and to please let me know what you might need going forward in order to make an appointment, and basically had invited everyone if they wanted to set meetings. And it was, I don't know who commented earlier, that is what I said, because that's what I had been assured in advance of the last council meeting. So when I said, I believe, sort of looking at Mr. Cummings at the time, that everyone would be given that opportunity, I believe that's what this was. And if you wanted to meet him in person, you wanted to get on a Zoom, as some of us did, we all had the opportunity, invitation, as of that date. And so some people, I guess, took up the opportunity to do so, and some did not. And I'm not judging or evaluating, but I'm just simply saying everyone was given the opportunity that was promised. So I just wanted to comment to that piece, because there was, that's just simply what happened. Is there anything to clarify further on that? I think that's just what's so.
Mayor, just a couple of comments too.
Please.
Once again, I ironically find myself agreeing with what many people out there had to say, and maybe I can just add one or two comments. And by that I mean about the real reason why I was brought here, and also the firm that I'm affiliated with was hired, and that is to try to help Montclair get through some of the issues that people brought up of the difficulties of recent times and having good governance here. And that's what we're here for. And we are all professionals, and a majority, this happens all the time, by the way, and I get hired, I do searches all of the time. It happened to me right here in Montclair when my phone started ringing one day, and people that knew me were saying, "Joe, are you leaving Montclair? Your job is advertised in the paper." Nobody told me. Talk about process and embarrassment or whatever, and going home to your wife and family and spouse and family and having them all upset in tears. But unfortunately or fortunately, that's the nature of the work that we do. Towns change managers and administrators all the time. And the majority of elected officials who represent the public have the prerogative to make that decision. So we do a lot of searches, and I just want some of the people who spoke to understand, yes, we do recruit very professionally. 3 of the last 4 or so recruitments that we did turned out to be people with advanced degrees, people of color. I just recruited a gentleman, a graduate of the Naval Academy in Annapolis, with a master's degree and great leadership, great resume, gentleman, a black man. So some of the comments that have been made about that are racially motivated are, quite frankly, just nonsense. But in any case, that's why we're here. And I'm here, by the way, I don't know if people know, when you talk about the resolution appointing me, I'm here at $1 a week and going into my 4th week. And the reason I came back, and just even seeing in the audience some of the people that I know, when I came to Montclair as township manager, as far as I know, I'm the only township manager who ever moved to Montclair with his family or her family as part of my commitment to the town. Of course, Brian is a Montclair native. He didn't have to move anywhere. But I'm not aware of any other manager who did that. So, Terry did too? Okay. So, since me, let me put it that way. In any case, so that's why I'm here, because I care about the town. I have so many friends in the town and so many people that I've worked with, and so many close ties to the community that I developed in the 7 years that I was here. My picture's up there. If you don't recognize me, I had hair then. I apologize for that. But that's why a majority of your elected officials brought us here. And you can be assured that we will have a professional search, and hopefully candidates out there, as some people have remarked, some of the difficulties in town. We always tell our clients, Google is not your friend. People research what's been going on in town, and we're going to have our work cut out for us to recruit somebody really good for you. Or Brian himself will certainly be accorded every courtesy and respect and is automatically a finalist for the job as far as I'm concerned. So I just want to address a few of those issues. Again, finding myself in agreement with some of the things that were said, as I had with some of what David Cummings had to say.
Well, Mr. Hartner, we thank you for that, and certainly generally, and I think it speaks for Montclair, we're happy to hear also that there's a number of individuals who have expressed interest already, so that's a good sign in this process, and we're happy about that. All right, any other comments? No? Okay. Okay. So with that, next we have agenda with flexibility. Mr. Burr, is there something for executive session that need to be shared?
No, Mayor, there's nothing
No.
for executive session, unless the council would like to move into executive session.
Okay, great. So then next, we do have Resolution R-23-188, which is the resolution appointing the interim township manager. That's the next one on the agenda here. I so move it.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. Any questions, concerns, or comments around it? Councilwoman Price Abrams?
Thank you. I guess I could have said it before, but I was, my reason for taking this action and voting in support of it tonight is really that this provides us a return to the full staffing in the manager's office by having a manager and a deputy manager. We have a complex and large township. We have a vast array of, things people have spoken about, things that we're all working on, and I don't know why we would be working with less than a full complement of professionals, and I really do believe we'll be strengthened by bringing in a professional to work with our deputy manager, and I believe we will be a strong team for doing so. That's what I'd like to offer. Thank you.
Madam Clerk?
Counselor Cummings absent, Deputy Mayor Herlock absent, Counselor Price Abrams,
Yes.
Counselor Russo absent, Counselor Schlager,
Yes.
Counselor Yacobelis,
Yes.
Mayor Spiller.
Yes. And with that, certainly, I'll just take that moment as we started to appreciate that, thank for labor in the business, and also just reflect again on our just shocking news today with our Lieutenant Governor. I think a surprise to all, and I think all of us are still taking that in, and still taking that in a way, but certainly sad news, and to her family, we offer our condolences. And with that, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.